Hi, Lachey. So this is a recording for your culinary arts. You have to read chapter 6. It is a really, really long chapter, 16 pages. So what I thought I would do is record it so you can do the reading and listen to me read it as you go. So on my screen, you should see your class. So I'm going to direct you where you need to go to access the reading and information. So we want to be in week 4. So you're going to click on week 4 folder. And then about the 6th one down, you're going to see this PDF right here that says Read Asynchronous Day Level 1, Chapter 6. So you are going to want to click on that. And I am going to have you follow along as I read the chapter. You can feel free to hit pause at any time. You also are going to be doing a jigsaw activity in week 5 that has a study guide. So you're going to want this information to be able to do the study guide in week 5. So here we go. Chapter 6, Introduction to Food Safety. So as we read the chapter, you're going to be thinking about 10 questions. So I want you, as I'm reading, to think about: what is a foodborne illness outbreak? What are the costs associated with a foodborne illness outbreak? Who is at high risk for contracting a foodborne illness? What are the ways that food becomes unsafe? What is FATTOM? What are the characteristics of TCS food? What are the most common food allergens? What are the methods for preventing allergic reactions to food? Why is a food defense system needed? What government agencies regulate the restaurant and food service industry? And then you're going to see a bunch of key terms. So those are the words that are going to come up in our reading. So, introduction. Dining out is an experience that most people enjoy. Restaurants offer more than just good food. They can also be the perfect place for talking to friends, celebrating, conducting business, or even just relaxing. When people dine out, they expect to have a good time. But even more important, they expect to eat delicious, safe food. Keeping food safe is very important. In fact, many would say it is the single most important job in a restaurant or food service operation. Foodborne illness and its costs. A foodborne illness is a disease transmitted to people by food. A foodborne illness outbreak is when 2 or more people get the same illness after eating the same food. An investigation is conducted by state and local regulatory authorities. The outbreak is confirmed by laboratory analysis. Overall, the restaurant and food service industry does an excellent job of providing safe food to the public. But foodborne illness still costs the United States billions of dollars each year. National Restaurant Association figures show that one outbreak can cost an operation thousands of dollars and might even force it to close. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, estimates that there are 48 million cases of foodborne illness in the United States each year. That is about 1 of every 6 Americans. Of these, approximately 128,000 require hospitalization and 3,000 end in death. There are many ways in which foodborne illnesses can impact an operation, including loss of guests and sales, loss of reputation, negative media exposure, lowered staff morale, lawsuits and legal fees, staff absenteeism, increased insurance premiums, staff retraining. Consider the following cases. At an East Coast school, over 400 children got sick after they were served lunch. Later, it was discovered that the source of the illness was contaminated egg salad sandwiches that the students ate. A nationwide Salmonella typhi outbreak traced to peanut butter sickened more than 700 people in 46 states, and 3 elderly people died from the outbreak. The peanut butter was distributed to schools, hospitals, and long-term care facilities. An elderly woman died and several hundred other people got sick after eating food served at a state fair. Most of the people who got sick were tourists. Health departments across the country received reports of illness, and many people were hospitalized. People in 5 states got sick in a listeria outbreak that was linked to cheese. The outbreak resulted in the death of 1 person and 1 pregnancy miscarriage. Most important are the human costs. Victims of foodborne illnesses may experience loss of time at work, medical costs, long-term disability, and possibly death. You will play an important role in keeping food safe, and preventing foodborne illness does not need to be complicated. In fact, sometimes it can be as easy as remembering to wash your hands. Once you understand the basics of food safety, you can take steps to prevent food-related problems. Populations at high risk for foodborne illnesses. Certain groups of people have a higher risk of getting a foodborne illness than others. These groups are known as high-risk populations. The main reason these people have a higher risk is that they have weakened immune systems. The immune system is the body's defense against illness. When the system is weak, it cannot fight off illnesses as easily as a healthy system. These are the 3 main groups of high-risk populations. Elderly people. People's immune systems weaken with age. Preschool-age children. Very young children have not yet built up strong immune systems. People with compromised immune systems. People with cancer or on chemotherapy, people with HIV, AIDS, and transplant recipients all have immune system weakened by illness or treatment. Certain medications can also weaken the immune system. These people are all considered high-risk populations for foodborne illness. Operations that serve these groups, such as nursing homes or daycare centers, must sometimes follow special rules. Forms of contamination. To prevent foodborne illness, it is important to recognize the hazards that can make food unsafe. A hazard is something with the potential to cause harm. In the preparation of food, hazards are divided into 3 categories: biological, chemical, and physical. Figure 6.1 shows examples of these hazards. So if you look to the left-hand side, you can see different types of hazards. Many hazards contaminate food because someone has handled the food incorrectly. Contamination means that harmful things are present in food, making it unsafe to eat. Food can become unsafe through any of the following practices. Poor personal hygiene transfers pathogens, the microorganisms that cause illness, from your body to food. Time temperature abuse allows food to stay too long at temperatures that are good for pathogen growth. Cross-contamination transfers pathogens from one surface or food to another. Poor cleaning and sanitizing allows contaminated surfaces to touch food. Purchasing from unsafe sources brings food from sources that are not following food safety practices into the operation. Biological contamination. Microorganisms are small living organisms that can be seen only through a microscope. Most living things, including humans, carry microorganisms on or in their bodies. Microorganisms that can cause illness are called pathogens. They can be transferred from surfaces and hands to food and other surfaces. Pathogens are the greatest threat to food safety in a restaurant or food service operation. There are 4 types of pathogens that can contaminate food, causing foodborne illness: viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungi. Many viruses, bacteria, and parasites cause illnesses but cannot be seen, smelled, or tasted. On the other hand, some fungi, like mold, change the appearance, taste, or smell of food, but might not cause illness. Viruses. Viruses are the leading cause of foodborne illness. Restaurant and food service managers must understand what viruses are and how they can make people sick. Most importantly, managers must know how to prevent viruses from making guests sick. Viruses can survive refrigerator and freezer temperatures. They cannot grow in food, but once they are eaten, they grow inside a person's intestines. People can get viruses from many things, including food, water, and contaminated surfaces, or from other people. Examples of viruses that can cause foodborne illness include hepatitis A and norovirus. Foodborne illness caused by viruses can generally be prevented if you take the right precautions. People carry viruses in their feces and can transfer them to their hands after using the restroom. And that is why workers are always told to wash their hands after using the restroom, because otherwise they could contaminate food and make guests sick. The best ways to prevent the spread of viruses are to stay home if you have been vomiting or have diarrhea or jaundice. Jaundice is the yellowing of skin and eyes. Wash your hands at the right times and in the right way. Avoid using bare hands to handle ready-to-eat food. Bacteria. Knowing what bacteria are and how they grow can help you control them. See figure 6.2, so that is on the right-hand side. If the conditions are right, bacteria will grow rapidly, doubling their numbers as often as every 20 minutes. Some bacteria, as they grow and die, create toxins, which are poisons in food. Cooking may not destroy these toxins, and people who eat the food can become sick. Examples of foodborne bacteria include Salmonella, typhi, and non-typhoidal Salmonella, Shigella spp, and Shigo toxin producing E. coli, which is STEC. Bacteria need 6 conditions to grow. An easy way to remember these conditions is by remembering the phrase FATTOM: food, acidity, temperature, time, oxygen, and moisture. So let's talk about them. Food. To grow, bacteria need an energy source. Carbohydrates such as baked potatoes and protein such as beef are examples. Acidity. Bacteria grow best in foods that contain little or no acid. An example of food with a lot of acid is lemons. Food items with little acid include chicken and cooked corn. On the next page, figure 6.3 shows the acidity of common food types. Temperature. Bacteria grow well in food that has a temperature between 41 and 135 degrees. This range is known as the temperature danger zone. Time. Bacteria needs time to grow. The more time bacteria spend in the temperature danger zone, the more opportunity they have to grow to unsafe levels. Oxygen. Some bacteria need oxygen to grow. Others grow when oxygen is not there. For example, some bacteria that grow without oxygen would grow quickly in a pot of cooked rice. Moisture. Bacteria need moisture in food to grow. For example, tomatoes and melons have a large amount of water in them, which means they can easily support the growth of pathogens. And then this is just a table, it looks like, explaining acidity, so how much acid different foods have in them. So if you want to take a look at that just briefly. Food handlers can help to keep food safe by controlling FATTOM. Most of the time, however, a restaurant or food service operation is only going to be able to control time and temperature. Food that is most vulnerable to pathogen growth is also referred to as food that needs time and temperature control for safety. TCS food for short. Table 6.1 lists TCS foods. All these types of food have the FATTOM conditions needed for bacterial growth. Not surprisingly, they are also commonly involved in foodborne illness outbreaks. You can control the growth of most bacteria by keeping food out of the temperature danger zone. The temperature range from 41 degrees and 135 degrees. Bacteria grow well in this temperature range. See figure 6.4, which is right to the left. To reduce the risk of foodborne illness, food handlers must keep TCS food out of the temperature danger zone as much as possible. But the reality is that TCS food is most likely going to spend some time in this range. Taking deli meat out of a cooler in order to prepare a sandwich would be one example. Like TCS food, ready-to-eat food also needs careful handling to prevent contamination. Ready-to-eat food is exactly what it sounds like, food that can be eaten without further preparation, washing, or cooking. Some examples of ready-to-eat food items include washed fruit and vegetables, both whole and cut, deli meat, bakery items, sugar, spices, seasonings, and cooked food. And then, excuse me, figure 6.1 shows you pictures of food most likely to become unsafe, and those are the time-sensitive foods. So you have potatoes, you have shellfish, you have milk, chicken, eggs, etc. Now we're going to talk about parasites. In the United States, illnesses from parasites are not as common as those from viruses and bacteria. However, it is still important to understand what parasites are and how to prevent contamination. Parasites do not grow in food. They get nourishment and protection from other living organisms known as hosts. A host may be a person, animal, or plant. Parasites can live in cows, chickens, pigs, and fish, many types of food that humans like to eat. They also can contaminate water. In the United States, the most common foodborne parasites are Protozoa, roundworms, and tapeworms. The foodborne parasites that cause the most hospitalizations and deaths in this country is Toxoplasma gondii, which causes toxoplasmosis. Illness caused by parasites is preventable. The most important measures that restaurants and food service managers can take to prevent parasites is to purchase food from approved, reputable suppliers. Fungi, or fungi, however you want to pronounce it, can cause illness, but most commonly they are responsible for spoiling food. Fungi are found in air, soil, plants, water, and some food. Mold and yeast are examples of fungi. Most mold that is visible to the human eye is actually a tangled mass of thousands of tiny mold plants. Mold shares some basic characteristics. They grow under almost any condition, but they grow especially well in acidic food with little moisture. Jams, jellies, and cured salty meat such as bacon are example of this kind of food. Molds often spoil food and sometimes produce toxins that can make people sick. Refrigerator and freezer temperatures may slow the growth of molds, but cold mold does not kill them. Sometimes mold is intentionally used to affect the flavor and characteristics of a product. This is often done with cheese. Brie, Camembert, and Gorgonzola are good examples. Unless the mold is a natural part of the product, throw out the moldy food. Figure 6.5 shows mold on cheese. Yeast can spoil food quickly. The signs of spoilage include the smell or taste of alcohol, white or pink discoloration, slime, and bubbles. Figure 6.6, so right above, shows what yeast looks like in jam. Like molds, yeast grow well in acidic food with little moisture. Examples include jellies, jams, syrup, honey, and fruit or fruit juice. Throw out any food that has been spoiled by yeast. Biological toxins. Some pathogens make biological toxins or poisons. Certain kinds of plants or animals contain toxins naturally. Sometimes plants or animals can become contaminated with biological toxins somewhere in the food chain. Examples of this might be contaminated seafood resulting from fish eating toxic algae or poisonous wild mushrooms. Toxins can make people sick, so restaurant and food service managers must be aware of them. Chemical contamination. Chemical contaminants pose a risk to food safety. These contaminants come from everyday items that may be found in many restaurant and food service operations. Restaurant and food service chemicals can contaminate food if they are used or stored in the wrong manner. This includes cleaners, sanitizers, polishes, and machine lubricants. Chemicals should be stored in a separate area away from food, utensils, and equipment used for food. You should always follow the manufacturer's directions when using chemicals, especially while food is being prepared. Figure 6.7, right on the right, shows an example of inappropriate chemical storage. Physical contamination. Physical contamination happens when objects get into food. These objects can be naturally occurring, such as the bones in fish. Other contaminants result from accidents or mistakes. Table 6.2 shows examples of physical contaminants. Most physical contamination can be prevented by doing the following: inspecting food closely when it is received, practicing good personal hygiene, following safe preparation procedures. So if we look at the diagram, fingernails, hair, and bandages getting into food, fruit pits, glass from broken light bulbs, jewelry, metal shavings from cans. And then there is a knowledge check right at the bottom. So I want you to pause the recording and take a look at those questions and see if you can answer them. So I'm going to continue with food allergies. The number of people in the United States with food allergies is increasing. A food allergy is the body's negative reaction to a food protein. The proteins that cause allergic reactions are called food allergens, and these proteins occur naturally. When enough of the allergen is eaten, the immune system mistakenly considers it harmful and attacks the protein. This can result in an allergic reaction. People with food allergies can become sick or sometimes die from eating even a tiny amount of a triggering allergen. In fact, if a food allergen even touches a dish that an allergic guest eats, it can be enough to trigger a reaction. When a food item containing an allergen comes in contact with another food item and their proteins mix, it is called cross-contact. It sounds similar to cross-contamination, but cross-contact refers specifically to food allergens. In a restaurant or food service operation, managers, servers, and kitchen staff must each do their part to keep guests with food allergens safe. That means keeping the food allergens away from the guests who are allergic to them. Table 6.3 right below shows the big 8 food allergens. These allergens account for 90% of all food allergy reactions in the United States. So out of all the things people are allergic to, these are the most common ones. Shellfish, such as crab, lobster, and shrimp. A lot of people are allergic to eggs. Fish, such as tuna and cod. Milk, peanuts, soy, tree nuts, such as almonds, walnuts, and pecans, and wheat. People who work with food need to be aware of the Big 8. It is also important to know which menu items contain them. When a guest says that he or she has a food allergy, you need to pay attention. Serving guests with food allergies. When serving guests with food allergies, servers must be ready to answer guests' questions about any menu item. It is also important to know how to prevent cross-contact. Here is how to keep guests safe. First, tell the guest how each dish is made. It is important to know which dishes contain Big 8 allergens. Tell the guest about any secret ingredients that may contain allergens. While you might not want to share these recipes with the public, you still must be able to tell the guest if the dish contains an allergen. Suggest alternative menu items that do not have the food allergen. Identify the allergen special order. Clearly indicate the order for the guest with the allergy. This is important for the kitchen staff. Figure 6.8 on the left-hand side shows an example of this. It is also a good idea to verbally tell the kitchen staff about the food allergen. Hand deliver the allergen special order to the guest. Do this separately from other food to prevent cross-contact. Servers should never take a guest's about what a menu item contains. If they do not know, they should ask someone who does, such as the manager or kitchen staff. Prepping food for guests with food allergies. When preparing food for guests with food allergies, kitchen staff must make sure that the allergens are not transferred from food containing an allergen to the food served to the guest. For example, think about a guest with a shellfish allergy who orders chicken nuggets. What happens if the chicken nuggets are cooked in a fryer that was used for shrimp? As you may have guessed, that is cross contact. Once food has come in contact with an allergen, it cannot be made safe again. For example, someone might be tempted to pick the almond off of a salad for a guest with a tree nut allergy, but that salad can still cause an allergic reaction even with the nuts removed. If you see cross contact happen, set the food aside and do not serve it to a guest with a food allergy. Table 6.4 illustrates the steps that kitchen staff must take to avoid cross contact. So if we look at 6.4, we see all of the things that they do. They check recipes and ingredient labels. They make sure the allergen is not present. They wash, rinse, and sanitize cookware, utensil, and equipment before preparing the food. This includes food prep surfaces. Some operations use a separate set of utensils just for allergen special orders. They also make sure the allergens do not touch anything that is going to be served or used by these guests. This includes food, beverages, and utensils, or anything that is used to preparing for food for them, such as equipment and gloves. Wash your hands and change gloves before preparing the food. Use equipment assigned only for preparing allergen and special orders. Use separate fryers and cooking oils when frying foods for guests with food allergies. Food defense. The prevention measures discussed throughout this section will help prevent accidental contamination of food. But restaurant and food service employees also must take steps to prevent people from purposely contaminating food. Competitors, vendors, former staff, guests, or terrorists may try to tamper with the food in your operation. Attacks might occur anywhere from the farm to the restaurant. They are usually focused on a specific food item, a manufacturing process, or a business. The best way to protect food is to make it as difficult as possible for someone to tamper with it. One important way to prevent tampering is to control access to the operation, food storage, and preparation areas. Uniforms and name tags help identify employees and vendors. Security badges also help ensure that only the people who belong there are in the specific food area. All staff in an operation, from busser to executive chef, should report anything that seems suspicious. As the saying goes, if you see something, say something. U.S. regulation of food safety. Today, many government departments monitor food safety. In the United States, most regulations that affect restaurant and food service operations are written at the state level. However, federal, state, and local governments are all involved. The Food and Drug Administration, also known as the FDA, writes the FDA Food Code, which recommends specific food safety regulations for the restaurant and food service industry. But the code is not actual law. Each state decides whether to adopt the FDA Food Code or some form of it as law. The laws passed at the state level are then enforced by state or local, city or county health departments. Health inspectors from city, county, or state health departments conduct inspections in most states. An inspection is a formal review or examination conducted to see if an operation is following food safety laws. All operations serving food to the public are inspected. If violations are found, operations such as restaurants, hospitals, nursing homes, and schools may be temporarily closed. The most important reason for inspections is that failing to keep food safe can put the health of guests at risk. Failing an inspection could also result in the operation going out of business. Successful restaurant and food service managers understand local food safety requirements and design policies that address them. They also conduct their own self-inspections. A self-inspection should check for the same things that a health inspector would look for, so that an operation is always prepared and functioning properly. I'm going to have you pause the recording, and I want you to look at the knowledge check. I want you to look at those 2 questions and see if you can answer them. Now I'm going to finish with a summary. So in this chapter, you learned the following. 1, a foodborne illness is a disease transmitted to people by food. A foodborne illness outbreak is when 2 or more people get the same illness after eating the same food. The illness must be investigated and confirmed by laboratory analysis. There are 3 primary hazards to food safety: biological hazards such as viruses, chemical hazards such as cleaners and machine lubricants, and physical hazards such as broken glass. Microorganisms that cause disease are called pathogens. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, fungi, and biological toxins are also threats to food safety. Bacteria need 6 conditions to grow. They require the correct food, acidity, time to grow, temperature, oxygen levels, and moistures. These conditions can be remembered by the acronym FATTOM. The temperature danger zone is the temperature range between 41 degrees and 135 degrees. Bacteria grow well in this temperature range. To prevent bacterial growth, limit the amount of time food spends in the temperature danger zones. Some food items have the right characteristics to support the growth of bacteria. In order to prevent bacterial growth, these food items require time and temperature control for safety, TCS. These food items are called TCS food. Meat and milk are 2 examples. Food proteins that cause allergic reactions are called food allergens. The big 8 food allergens cause 90% of food allergic reactions in the United States. If a guest has a food allergy, it is important to prevent cross-contact with the food to which the guest is allergic. The big 8 food allergens include eggs, crustacean, shellfish, fish, milk, peanuts, soy, tree nuts, and wheat. Some people, such as competitors or others, may try to tamper with food and deliberately cause foodborne illnesses. The best way to prevent this is to make it difficult for someone to tamper with food. Restricting access to critical parts of an operation is one way to do this. The Food and Drug Administration creates the FDA Food Code, which recommends regulations to keep food safe. Each state decides whether or not to adopt all or part of the food code. State laws are enforced by state, city, or county health departments through inspections. So that is the end of the reading. So what we are going to do with the reading, that was in week 4. So we are now going to go into week 5, and I'm going to show you that. So we want week 5. So I'm looking right here, and you are going to have to do the jigsaw activity. So I'm going to click on the jigsaw activity. You are first going to watch the video that gives you the instruction. This right here is the chapter that I just read to you. This right here is what she talked about when we met with her, and she said you might have to write it down. Let me know. I can also, if we need to, I can make some copies of things and drop it off at your house if that's easier than writing everything down. But then regardless, you're going to have to take a picture and then submit the picture. So do the reading first, then go into week 5, watch the video as she explains what you need to do. And then this is the activity guide that you need to do before you take the test. So I will meet with you again this week, and we will see how you're doing. Hope it goes well. Talk to you later. Bye.